Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss a few emerging themes concerning the Tories' main frenemies, Reform UK, with a flurry of candidates having to be deselected, as I predicted a long time ago, and with the Tories possibly on course for almost complete wipeout. Have Richard Tice's crew overreached themselves? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So the love-hate relationship between Reform UK and the Tories is really quite interesting. And I'd like to update my thoughts from both sides, but the Reform UK side today. So there are two aspects to my thoughts here. The first is, are they more successful than they really wanted to be? Which sounds like an odd question, but I think that depends on what their long-term aims are, which isn't clear. But second, has their failure to build as a proper political party hurt them? So if I start with this second one, I said a long time ago, Reform UK do not have the infrastructure to vet candidates for every seat in Britain. There are lots of money behind them, goodness knows where from. But that doesn't allow you to just create a political party overnight. I wondered if they would scale back their plans more realistically. You know, stand candidates in the seats where they think they can realistically attract a lot of support. Like, why would you do it in places where you're just not going to get any vote? You're not even going to get your deposit back. Why try and put a candidate in every seat in Britain that includes places where you are not going to feature at all? That's what smaller political parties do. For example, in 2019, the Green Party of England and Wales stood 472 candidates. Their record was 538 in 2015. Now, that's a lot, but this is from a party that's been building up for a long time. And it is still not every seat in England and Wales. They presented candidates where they could. You would have thought Reform UK would do the same. But they insisted they were going to stand candidates everywhere. I said at the time, they don't have the infrastructure to vet the candidates. They can't vet all those candidates. And given that this sort of party particularly attracts the crazies like moths to the flame, vetting was going to be especially important for them. If they were lucky, I said, their candidates would be outed while there was still time to replace them. And this has happened this week. Reform UK have had to drop several candidates over the last 48 hours after incredibly vile social media posts authored by them emerged. Now, here's the thing. A trawl of social media is the bargain basement level of vetting. If Reform UK were unaware of these social media posts, which were in the public domain until others pointed it out to them, they have no vetting process at all. For those unaware, to apply to be a Reform UK candidate, you basically hand them some money and fill in a form which asks you to confirm that you are not associated with various groups and other questions designed to weed out the completely unhinged extremists that they naturally attract. I think that's their vetting procedure. The application form, I think, is their vetting procedure. It works on the sort of basis of, oh, they're totally telling the truth and are aware of their own extremism or not. So now Richard Tice is trying to make a virtue of the fact he's dropping candidates, saying, oh, yes, but I'm dropping these candidates. The other parties could learn a lesson. The other parties have proper vetting processes, which means they rarely end up in this position. For example, like people will say, and have indeed have said, Labour's vetting of their short-term Rochdale candidate let them down. But the offending remarks were made in private, and the recording, which was not even supposed to take place, was not published until after it was too late to change candidates. There was nothing in the public domain. Did not come about as a result of something that Labour should and could have seen. But this is not a big issue for Reform UK right now. It's a bit embarrassing for them, but the election hasn't been called yet. But what happens? So let's say, at the moment, let's say you know that your local Reform UK candidate has said some terrible things on social media. If you want the Tories crushed, you will highlight it, right? And Reform UK will get rid of them and then they'll get someone else, right? But what if someone has the dirt on their local Reform UK candidate, but they want the Conservatives to win? They'll hold on to it until the deadline for candidates has passed and hope no one else presents it to anyone. They'll wait until it's too late for Reform UK to find a new candidate, then they'll alert the media. What if Reform UK then have a choice to make during the election campaign itself? drop the candidate in a seat where they might have actually taken a lot of votes from the Tories, maybe in the hope that people tick the Reform UK box anyway, or leave them and take the accusation of being a far-right party. It might well be that Reform UK can afford to drop the candidates more easily, for example, than Labour or the Conservatives could, even at that late stage, and still do their job. After all, it's not like they're actually aiming to win more than a couple of seats, and they're not realistically going to do that. And because they're not a proper political party, pulling official support, because the Reform UK would still be on the ballot paper and that candidate's name would still be next to it. Reform UK, pulling that support won't have as much impact as a real political party pulling support, because a real political party would be like diverting activists there. They'll have strategists on the ground and things like that. I think Reform UK are going to be essentially focusing on a national campaign through the mainstream media and leaving the door knocking to whoever their candidates can round up at the pub. But I certainly expect a lot more revelations of Reform UK candidates to come out, even in the election campaign itself. Not because I've got a crystal ball, but because we've saw it before with UKIP. And they were a more normal political party. They had better infrastructure. But it is a party which is going to attract these sorts of people. They are deliberately trying to attract people with these views as voters. So of course they're going to attract them as candidates as well. But that's just one issue. Another thought has been occurring to me of late, and it's whether Reform UK are really happy about how things are going in the polls, or is it a bit much? Very much depends on what they want to achieve. If they want to replace the Conservatives as the default right-wing option in the UK, eventually getting themselves MPs in Parliament, building up and so on, then in theory they're doing quite well. The first step to achieving all that, if it's actually possible at all, which I am doubtful of, would indeed be helping to deliver a fatal blow to the Conservatives. Because Conservative voters are going to start returning to the party after they've been in opposition for a few years. However badly the Tories are beaten down now, you would expect a lot of seats to flip back to them in the following election. So if you're going to completely take them out, you have this one chance to do it this year, this election. Destroy them utterly. But the second possibility, and the one I sort of tend to lean towards, is Reform UK are acting simply to keep the Tories thinking they have to pursue a very right-wing agenda in order to counter them. Sort of being like a more organised UKIP. Now, I think both strategies have their flaws, and as such, I don't know which is the case. The fact that they're not building up any proper party infrastructure, that would suggest to me they don't have a long-term plan for the party. They're running it as a business rather than a political party, even though it is a political party technically. They're making sure they meet the bare minimum requirements to register as a political party for elections, but are not building up long-term systems and procedures or even memberships. However, what if Tice and others think that they don't need a traditional political party structure to manage being eventually a party of government? What if they think they can have this sort of cabal model, achieve the sort of electoral success that proper political parties have, whilst maintaining control in the hands of a small number of people who are not elected by supporters? Now, I'm not convinced that can work, but can I guarantee that Tyson Farage don't think it can work? No. So I can't rule out the fact that they are in this as a long-term project to replace the Tories. It just seems improbable. But if they have set up as a business rather than a proper political party, because this is a short-term campaign, what then? Do they want the destruction of the Tory party, as they say? Or do they just want to contribute to a savage beating, followed by a deal to be struck whereby Reform UK stand down in a future election if they like the shape of that future Conservative manifesto? If they want the destruction of the Tory party in order to create a more hardline right-wing alternative, be it themselves or something else, then yes, they will be absolutely delighted with what's happening here. They're achieving poll results like this, which I do keep pointing out I think are slightly inflated, but they keep achieving poll results like this without Nigel Farage even formally on board. If all they wanted to do was beat the Tories down to maybe their worst ever result, but otherwise leave them to rebuild for a future election with a more radically right-wing agenda, then are they being too successful? What if they end up contributing to the fabled 1993 Canada-style wipeout? There is a trajectory whereby what Reform UK do here is destroy the notion of a credible right-wing party in Britain. For a while at least, there are too many people in this country on the right for that to remain the case, but for the foreseeable future. What if what emerges is a permanently fractured right-wing? The Conservatives have been used to being the natural destination for firmly right-wing votes and then fighting in the centre for the extra votes needed to win elections, while Labour have their vote increasingly split multiple ways. Labour have always, if they wanted to win the election, have had to fight just as hard as the Tories in the centre, but the left-wing votes split all over the place. What if the political reality that emerges is one in which Reform UK make it impossible for a right-wing government to emerge? If they succeed in getting the Tories to adopt a very extreme policy platform, so let's say the Tories go, look, we can't win with Reform UK standing against us, so we will do a deal with them, then they're presenting a policy platform which doesn't appeal to enough voters. If the Tories resist and decide to fight for votes in the centre as well as on the right, thinking we can't just abandon the centre, it leaves them having to fight on two fronts. Now, it'd be interesting to know exactly what Reform UK's real intentions are, but I'm not sure that any of the obvious possibilities has a strong chance of success. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.